Forgive me.
No.
I mean, wasn't his mom jailed for doing pretty much the same thing?
And there she is, yeah.
Yeah, she was.
If she was jailed for doing the same thing, then there are laws.
And he's doing it at a higher scale.
He's walking around now
on the face of things, though, he asked for an offering, a seed or whatever, and he was given. So people were gullible enough to give him money to pay for a miracle. Well, so why should we criminalize that?
We do criminalize con men.
And
if I come in and I tell you, wait, hold on. If I come in and I tell you, give me your money and I will double it, and I take off with it, you can go take me to court
and say
and I can be arrested, for defrauding
because you have used a lie.
Just because they're using the church does not
different
take
from
them.
what is the situation.
Does not relieve them.
My problem with I know this guy is wrong, yes, but my problem with this is put on any gospel channel and there will be pastors asking for money. Very recognized, accepted pastors every single day of the week. In fact, every hour.
That's why we need a spotlight on them.
So what makes this man any different?
Yes, I'm saying nothing. And what we need to be asking is
what makes him different is this. We don't know about these other people and what are the things they do. But in this one, and John Alanamu, Muhammad Ali did an excellent job to just piece together and back up the allegations that have been put against him, in that he'll come and say that, okay, I'm going to do this for you. And yes, you say these people are gullible in believing and going along, but he says he will do that by lying that he's been able to exorcise some demons, remove some, what are they called?
Get people jobs.
The needles.
Treat HIV.
Yeah, treat HIV. So you don't know he's lying because he's done all these things behind the scenes.
Yeah, but even
to you, it appears that it has actually happened. So he's lying.
But even though it did happen, how would you prove these matters of faith? How would you prove that?
You prove because you're still HIV positive.
What? No, but
did you actually watch the thing?
I watched it. No, I'm saying if there was a true,
I don't think proof is a problem.
No. If there was a true miracle, how would you prove it? This is my question.
Because you go to hospital and then you were HIV positive and now you're negative, you've proven. But if you're still positive and you said you're not,
as a person, yes, but as somebody else looking in who wants to sow 310 bob, how would I tell that the miracle was real?
Let's not run away from the facts. Number one, Kenya's premier pioneer private TV station, KTN, did an excellent job.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
If I was the police inspector general, I would hire Alan Namu and Moha to help me with investigations because my officers are failing me every other day. Two, I am very angry at Kenyans that such a huge number of Kenyans can be swayed and be cheated so cheaply. Tells a lot about our society. Is it that Kenyans are giving up? Is it that Kenyans have become dunderheads? You can be cheated by
life is hard, so you're looking for a way out. People. So you can't really blame them on that.
Yeah.
Those are things we need to interrogate. For you to operate this thing, for me it's a high-level cartel involving including mobile telephony service providers, and I know he must be enjoying very good protection from police officers and people in government. And for you to carry on with this, begging money, stealing from people, including the poor people, and you literally say on national TV that even if I steal from you today, let me do so. You lie that you can.
Yeah, the soundbite of the year.
HIV, AIDS. What message are you sending to people? I think this guy should be behind bars yesterday, not even today.
Very many pastors would be behind bars.
Yeah, yes. They should be. And this is my thing, is you can't hide behind the church. We shouldn't be allowing people to hide behind it, behind this thing called faith, and to essentially perpetrate scams. And that's what they're doing.
But the problem is that they have such large followings. 80%,
it doesn't matter. If you break the law, you break the law. It doesn't matter if you have 100 million guys.
No, the problem is they have such fertile ground with which to sow their seed. I mean, there are so many people who believe in them.
Yeah, but what you
human beings
the problem
is actually spiritual.
Yeah, but what you seem to be saying is that because they are so successful at calling people, that somehow they shouldn't be held to account.
The issue is us.
There are those who try to discredit Muha and on this particular story. What did you think of that? Some of the responses that came through.
We must credit Muha and Alan Namu and the cameraman who we always don't mention, and the good editors who went through piecing the final package together. Those guys did a good job, and I think for me that is the best journalism that we should be teaching in J schools, that we should be teaching new people in newsrooms. And KTN set the agenda. If you see key rival media houses running to the story like bees, then it tells you KTN continues to set the agenda, which means there's something unique about the Standard Group, and we must be singing about it. True. Yes. So it's very rare to
Gadara, did you see that people are trying to discredit the story
and put it on your page one?
Well, I didn't see the ones that tried to discredit it. I wasn't much online yesterday, but I go back and say that I think the focus should now move towards what is actually being done in terms of scrutiny of operations of essentially preachers, and in as much as the media is patting itself in the back, or KTN is, we've got to ask, how do you enable this when you have these guys on your platforms, selling these claims, So I think the media has to also examine itself.
Here because of a radio station. What was that radio station?
That aired his...
Yeah, I think you were said to have two TV whatever's, I'm not sure what stations.
I don't remember. But that's true.
2 TV shows and things. So the press itself has to ask. And I think these are the sort of things then that people like the Media Council alongside the editors and other media practitioners can sit down and try and come up with certain standards, if you will.
I think the guidelines and standards are there pretty much even at KTN. There's so much paperwork you go through, rules and regulations on what you should do. But I'm particularly concerned that when somebody is going to take national airtime or space in newspapers and claim I can treat HIV against all scientific methods available, I think for me that's a big lie and sending a very wrong signal.
So perhaps the media should not entertain, shouldn't give them a platform.
So there is a responsibility on the media as well in who's using our platforms.
Those in charge of programs, those in charge of content going on your platform must scrutinize that content. The only challenge I have is that some of the content comes on air live, so it's very difficult to control while on air. But we certainly
you can have delays and stuff. I mean, there are technical ways of, I think, dealing with that. But I think also media needs to put the spotlight on government and asking how are these people actually regulated. When they go and they buy, like as he did,
because no returns have been filed.
This is for the church. Who is this church that owns it?
But then how?
Yeah, I'm also waiting for a statement from Ministry of Health.
So there should be a spotlight on how these churches and these preachers are actually regulated. What are the sort of laws that govern them, and do we need changes to the law in this case? Does it highlight perhaps lacunas, perhaps problems that we have? The other issue, I think, again, they pointed out how he's not been filing any of his returns for his company. So again, what is KRA doing?
I told you it's very clear there is protection of such people, very high-placed people in government and in the relevant offices. I'm waiting to hear what the Ministry of Health is saying about a guy who lies in media platforms that I can treat HIV. I mean, Macharia owes us an explanation.
Now that to me is a much better story than whether his wife is going to forgive him.
So why are you again use story of the wife? I think I'd want to know.
I want to know.
Wouldn't you want to know?
I waited till the end of the bulletin last night and I was very disappointed.
When she didn't
come on,
I think everyone wants to know. Gadara, you're being too rigid on this one.
No, it's not actually taking. It's more the titillating bit.
But it's newsworthy.
I think
the more newsworthy
bits and the more important stuff,
why does it have to be important? Why can't it just be interesting? We just want to know.
Gadara sees life in this way.
No.
There's just one way.
You're pushing. And again, don't forget, you are the guys who are pushing this.
We're not pushing it, we're just presenting it.
And it's you cannot say pushing what, Gadara, pushing what.
I mean, like
we've
this
highlighted
bio
the
thing.
Look, for the last, ever since the Capedo thing happened, we've been pushing
out there. You guys, in fact, for quite a long time yesterday, I was watching the news, and she's coming, this is going to be, it was your big question of the thing. As you said before about the nation tweeting that actually she's coming on the trend, and
and I think if
you're pushing that angle. My thing is, who is pushing the angle of government? who is pushing the angle of what the media should do. And this, to me, are much more important, you know, than whether or not
I think that was just that was a light note. Just
Don't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to watch an interview with Betty Bayo?
Oh yes, definitely.
For sure. As a point of
I will be waiting for the one with the government officials.
I won't be watching. I think
that
is
Sophia, you've said that. We are very proud of KTN.
Yeah, Daily Nation picking it up, going strong, but at least also just crediting. Of course, they had to. KTN in so doing. So we wait to see how this story goes. But as you said, Gadara, very important that perhaps that's an angle we need to explore. What about the government? Sure. Yes, there's a report, I think it was Sharon who did that story, asking what legal recourse can be sought, what can be done. So I guess one of those things we wait to see.
The actual legal regime, I'd really be interested to hear what legal regime do these guys actually operate under.
I don't think they operate under any, actually.
They're registered, the churches are, so the laws, some of the laws are there, perhaps they need to be added to or changed and stuff.
They're registered,
but we need
are they regulated?
to look at,
Regulation is a difficult part, because when in the report, Bishop, I think it was Gende, he was saying that's where it becomes tricky. It's a gray area, because how then do you say, oh, we need to wear your miracles, on whether they're godly or not, you know, are this from the Lord or this? So it's a tricky...
But those are, again, if we approach the problem, then we can
find solutions. When it's been proven, I guess then it's different. When you have evidence to show that this is...
there are laws against fraud, for example, and where it is obvious that fraud has been happening, you know, then I don't see a problem with prosecuting that. And the fact that his mom was prosecuted
shows that it's possible.
Shows that it is possible to go after. The other bigger question, I think, would be how widespread is this across all the guys we see on our Sunday church, our Sunday TV shows and everything. You know, if it's happening here, then it's more likely happening elsewhere.
Actually, one of the pastors tweeted in support of him, a very well-known pastor.
Which one?
I'm not sure I should say his name, but he did tweet about it yesterday, and then he took down the tweet, but somebody got a screenshot.
Okay, what did he say?
He said that while haters are hating...
that's... Okay. Well, that could... Was it in support, or was it because perhaps there was some hate coming towards him because of what others would say?
Perceive that perhaps he does something similar. I don't know, but it came in close proximity, so...
Yeah. Interesting. So let's, before we move on to politics, Ahmed Nasir Lenku Twitter war over land goes viral. What informed this headline today, would you know, in terms of this started out as tweets on social media, and it's the headline today? Gadara thinks we are dwelling on what?
No, I mean, on this particular one, there's been accusations made by Ahmed Nasir against Olelenku, saying that he's doing Mugabe-style land grabs, you know. I think it's important that we investigate this, and we don't just report the Twitter war, you know, which is happening out there, and it becomes just allegation, he said, she said, you know. Did this actually happen? Did 75 guys led by Olelenku, you know, 75 GSU guys actually invade a farm? You know, that's the sort of things I would expect our media would be following up on, you know, not just reporting that he tweeted about it, you know, and they had a tweet.
That's probably what they're doing now.
You know, that's what
but my concern, and for me, which is why it is a headline, is that you have a serious security setback in the country, and the man in charge of the docket, you know, is engaged with other things which are far away from Kapedo and the attacks on the Nyali barracks. Then it tells you the thinking of the ministry itself, the thinking of the top echelons of security docket is warped and unfocused in paying attention to the wrong things. I
don't speak for him, but he would argue life doesn't stop when one big thing is happening. He's using and dealing with his lawyers in this. It's not particularly Joseph Olelenku himself there, tweet whatever, responding. But hey,
in his defense, he was drawn into the Twitter war. And there are still allegations. We don't really know, like you say, what actually happened, what he did or didn't do. But a funny thing is that Ahmed Nasir did say, he was asked, why are you telling us on Twitter? they'll tell it to the press. And he said, but this is the press.
That's what he said.
That's what he said in one of his tweets, and lo and behold, it's on the cover page.
On the cover of it.
So it was quite an interesting.
But that's the other thing again. I mean, go to the press. That's fine to report, but there are authorities to which this can be should, if it happens, should be reported to. You know, I think also you've got to think about this in line with what's happening in Karen, you know, and even there you had unnamed cabinet secretaries, you know, said to be involved in grabbing a land, you know. So it starts to paint a picture of a government that's really involved.
Cluster land grab.
That's eating and, to use that famous phrase, vomiting on our shoes.
Okay.
You know, so we need, I think, to insist that proper investigations and stuff are done into these sorts of allegations.
And that matter, the deputy president has sued some politicians.
Has sued some politicians.
Yeah, which actually I have a comment on.
Yeah.
I do understand why he'd sue, but there is a line that we've got to be very careful. If you remember during Moi's time, it was the threat of suit, you know, was used essentially to silence people. You know, when that book by Trun was put out about Ouko, Bookpoint got sued, you know, slapped something like 60 million bob, and suddenly you couldn't find that book anywhere. You know, so it's important that we be careful that in as much as the politicians, as individuals, are free to file suit, that this does not become a
but
way.
I think it's different in this day and age. You know, like for example, to just draw from this, Ahmed Nasser in responding to Lenku says, you go ahead, because he knows what he has on or doesn't have on him. So today if somebody says they're going to sue you, and you surely know, because these leaders had said they'd appear before ESCC, they did not. So it brings into question, are they just using this to get the political temperatures
did you
up?
remember the Nation when they reported the land grab story? They say we have established that a cabinet secretary is involved. We have established top security. They don't name any of them. But they say we know there are 40 MPs. They don't name any of them. Why? It is the threat of suit. And that works then to keep us ignorant. So we can't actually say, you know, it's that guy. You know, it's that guy.
But also, in all fairness, it helps that when you're going to make allegations, you need to have your evidence. Yeah. You cannot just be saying things.
True. I mean, I accept that. But there is a standard at which we should be willing, and there should be a kind of reluctance, I think, by especially people who we are trying to hold to account, you know, to very quickly run back to the courts and get protection, you know. And I think the court should be actually quite, when they deal with these stories, a bit circumspect, you know, about simply saying that you can't sit and say, for example, I think Moi's era was corrupt, without having had evidence of that.
Okay.
You know, that is going to be a chill on any democratic discussions that you have.
Is it really a threat of suit or a threat of some kind of other consequence? Because if they have the truth, truth is always a defense to libel and defamation.
Yes.
So it's possibly, I don't think they are really afraid of being sued, because they can prove what they're saying.
Yeah, I also don't think it's being used as, you know, this is government, be very scared, don't be talking about these things. I think it's simply, I think it's setting
some other kind of consequence that they are afraid of.
What do you think?
Something else would happen to them,
because if that's the case, then we should really be concerned.
We should.
If what is the case?
If that's the case, if they are being threatened other ways, then we should be asking, where is the protections that we have?
And if they were, I think they'd be speaking.
Even those who are sued, there are people who can't threaten by taking them to court. They have generals in court. They have on dozens of cases. They know how to argue. Politically, if you ask me, I would have advised Ruto, please stay away, because he has learned matters before, and you know, it will work against
But
him.
if he's sure he's not in any way involved, why should he stay away as his name is being tarnished in public?
The court process, and I challenge him
which he's threatening to initiate because of what has been said.
The national TV KBC to broadcast live the proceedings in court.
Let's cross to politics, guys. And Kenyan-style politics never cease to amaze and become rather interesting, as we saw with what unfortunately happened to Maguire. So, in terms of what we have had covered in this particular story and what we've had the officials from ODM say, they said that he's done several things. The allegations against him that are very serious, according to the Secretary General. But the bare action to see those MCAs or whoever they were grab him, rough him up, go deflate his tires. I mean, that was insane. How does that happen in the 21st century, Ohito?
And then they are fined 9,000.
And yeah, I mean
it shows you that the level of intolerance in our politics, how primitive we still remain, despite clamoring to be democratic institutions and parties. And I think parties in Kenya should try and benchmark themselves against serious institutions like ANC, like CCM in Tanzania, rather than treating us to all this drama. You know, they should be talking about serious policy matters. At a time when our officers are being killed like flies, they should be saying what their positions are on security matters, not deflating tires. I mean, that is the lowest I think ODM has done, and it has done it more than once, more than twice, more than 10 times. There needs to be action. But it also shows you how fragile and novice our political parties are. That we have, even including the president's party, without fear of favor, has never held an election. Then how do you expect to grow parties to be stronger?
Is there enough spotlight being shed on these political parties? On one hand, they will come and have this, you know, how they will lead the country and do all these amazing things, when simply even in their own parties, they're not able to put house in order.
I think we give them too much airtime and too much attention, and it's just like a running reality drama thing that is getting annoying.
Starring.
Yes, yeah, starring. Because what happened was just disgraceful. Their leaders, they're giving leadership a very bad name. I don't understand what is going on and why as a country we're being taken on this dramatic journey by this group of people. I think they should step back and really think about what they're doing, what they were elected to do, and what they're doing. Would they do that in front of their own children? What kind of example are they setting for the country? Words fail me when I watch that thing. It's just absolutely despicable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should just get their act together and do what they are supposed to. And I'm sure they know what that is. So why are they doing the wrong thing?
Okay, Patrick, is the media helping Kenyans hold these leaders to account?
I mean, we have laws on the books. Beating up somebody is a crime. You know, and this is the thing. And again, if you think about it, it's the same way the guys in churches use the churches to hide, you know, from the consequences. It's the same way our politicians use politics to hide from consequences. There were crimes committed. You remember when we were clamoring for Kidero to be taken to court after he slapped Shebesh? You know, it's the same thing here, where a guy has been beaten up in public, you know, in the view of police officers. You know, yet nobody was arrested, nobody was grabbed, nobody has been charged. You know, so in what sense are we a country of laws? People are going and deflating your tires. You know, in what way are we? In what sense are we a country of laws? You know, because there and then people should have been grabbed, put in the Mariam, you know, charged in court, because they are breaking
10,000 shillings per each of those
MCAs
who
300,000 shillings.
But I guess that's a reflection of society. A lawless society is what we have.
Yeah, precisely. You know, it's a society of impunity.
Yeah.
You know, where
people say they'll disregard court orders as well.
Yeah, you know,
there is a party regulator. We want to see what action is being taken against such a party. You know, there are rules and regulations which govern how parties must behave.
I mean,
how
remember,
must they conduct business. If they are going to behave that way and there's no action taken, then we are setting very bad
And what's
precedent.
the point of the rules?
Yeah. I mean, remember the ODM elections at the Men in Black. Again, nobody arrested, nobody charged.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got to ask, you know, these are public functions, you know, laws are broken, and the police ignore it because it is politics. You know, and when we take the realm of politics and remove it from under the ambit of the law, then we're setting ourselves up for.
So is the media letting these politicians get away with all this madness?
No, they don't get away. We have said as
no, but we're simply reporting he was beaten, he was roughed up. That's it. But in terms of drawing those parallels, it is not the work, but it is surely. We're not enforcing the laws, but there is a responsibility in as far as calling to account, saying that by the way, you cannot on one day do this and the next, go against everything that you claim to believe or not.
There's only much the media can do. Remember, political parties are the vehicles through which we elect our leaders. If we are going to have such chaotic system through which our leaders come through, then you expect national chaos like what we are witnessing. That there can be lawlessness and nobody cares. That there can be gangs in parts of the country and nobody cares. That the military barracks can. Those are the end results of having weak parties which cannot vet through proper leaders to come to the channel.
And that's what exactly, I mean, that linkage, what you've just said now, telling that story so well that, by the way, this is what this means. This is ultimately where we'll find ourselves because of this little or not so little roughing up of somebody at a political party meeting.
Sure. Yeah,
yeah. I think they have, clearly they have their own agenda and they know what they're doing, and it's like we are spectating.
Do they know what they're doing?
No, not that they know what they do, technically speaking, but they're doing something and they know what it is, but we're not privy to what they're doing. We're watching, we're observing. I'm wondering what can we really do about it, even if we talk about it day in and day out. As we're saying, the men in black, we talked, came and went. This one has come, we are talking, we might do all the deep digging and the analysis, but then I think our problem is, what are we going to...
Is the media helpless in this one, that this is Kenyan politics
again,
has been practiced?
Without saying, I mean, the media, of course, does not enforce law.
Correct.
But what it does is it can put a spotlight, and one of the ways it holds government to account is by revealing some of the failures that the government then wants revealed. And in this case, there is definitely a failure in upholding the law. And what we should have is an insistence, that the people who failed, all those policemen who were standing around there, who's holding them to account? Who's holding their bosses to account? etc. And this is by shining that spotlight consistently and showing the pictures you're saying before, the wider context of things, is how you hold, is how you enable the public to understand what the problems are, what the issues are, and then they can hold their politicians, they can demand action of the politicians.
Why is that it's a reflection of us is because the people who are supposed to be holding those other people to account, we are the same people who will bribe a cop at the drop of a hat, or a government official, or run a red light. We're just as lawless. So I think we've come to a place where it's almost like a breakdown of society.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing.
So we're asking of them what we're not.
Yes. Yeah. So how do we handle that?
How it works. If you have a leader elected into office through a flawed process that included violence, you cannot expect the same leader to turn back against violence and condemn it. No. That is what is happening. That nearly 3/4 of our leaders have gone through party ranks in an unfair and justified way, using violence, bribery, and all manners of illegal ways to an elective position. So how then do you expect them to come back and sit and defend that we should have an organized party that holds elections regularly, a party where nobody should lift a finger or a fist against the other? That orderly system, until and unless we grow our parties to such levels, you'll expect the Kenya's leadership to be, for any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And you wonder, sometimes people ask us in the international community, how was this guy elected? I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer because the process is all muddied.
Well, at least in the past, they had the good grace not to be so obvious about their dysfunction. Now it's going to another level.
And then there's UDF coming in, and the suspension and expulsion of members, it would seem arbitrarily, it was overturned. And the media, in telling this story, what have you gotten from it? What exactly is happening at UDF House?
Well, I have to confess I haven't followed it too closely, the UDF thing. But I think that on a wider basis, again, there are problems that we are having with our political parties. You know, when we've gone back, and this is again a function of the law that we put in, where parties can eject members, you know, essentially to reinforce discipline. But we can say this has potential for abuse, you know, where if you don't agree with the party leadership, they can get rid of you and you lose your seat. You know?
But is it even to instill discipline?
We need to remember that how that was used during the KANU days, you know, essentially to prevent any sort of dissent happening within KANU. So we need, I think, to again go back, really look at the laws. What is it that we are trying to achieve? Is it working? Is it not working? For
I think for very many, we have a problem. I think it's a culture which we must learn, but it grows over time. Kenya's democracy is very young, just maybe 50 years old. Multi-party democracy is still much younger, less than 3 decades old. If you look at what is, we don't have, parties are basically vehicles for election. Every other party either goes into a limbo or in the lowest part of the graph immediately after elections. And when the elections come, then they're up and running again. So until we have strong parties across board, or I would have preferred when we had 2 or 3, like in the US, you know, then it would be very easy to manage. But when we have these people who grew up in KANU still holding the bigger offices across all parties in the country, then you expect the hangovers to come on board. There is no reason absolutely why Mudavadi, who left ODM under the same circumstances, tried to implement the same things which made him leave ODM. It leaves any person with, you know, intelligence wondering, was this the same Mudavadi who left ODM because there was no democracy, and he goes on to do the same on UDF? I mean, it's a big joke. Until we have strong political party institutions divorced from individuals, then we are going to have the problem. Until we have strong parties, and it's only in Kenya where parties are formed 3 months before the election, and they form government. So there are no even structures, there are no institutions for the party. There is no policy. If you ask 80% of ODM members to tell you 3 pillars of the party, they wouldn't know. Same to Jubilee, same to TNA and URP. So yeah, but it's a big problem that we face in this country.
Doesn't that point to sort of, it's almost like we are superimposing a structure on something that doesn't exist? So for example, we try and legislate loyalty, party loyalty. We try and tell people you're going to be loyal.
Yeah, we choose to want the laws to function when they favor us and forget about them when they don't.
So perhaps we need to rethink, and this is my point, we need to rethink how we approach the whole thing.
But will that ever change? Julie, do you see that? Because it's just been so entrenched, it's so deep-rooted.
I think it's just a matter of people not doing, they have their rules, they have their regulations, we have, the laws. They're just not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and that's another thing, if we don't enforce the books, I mean, if we have parties that have never held elections.
And it's also because we just sit back and watch them do all this stuff, for lack of a better word. Yeah, they're not doing what they know that they should be doing, and we should have a way to enforce it or to hold them accountable, but we haven't found that way yet.
And Sophia, it's always the men fighting and deflating other tires. Perhaps we should have more women at party hierarchy. You know, more women there. There would be a big change in this country. And
that sounds good. Violence. That sounds good. I'm looking for the story that Gidara was talking about, away from politics. The president received a message to pay a bill to have a family have their loved one removed. Was it in the, which daily was it in?
I'm not sure. I think it was
actually in today's. I saw it in one of the papers. Anyway, to have their loved one, the body was held up in the mortuary because of some bills that are not paid. So they were desperate, sent a message to the president, and the message, the president actually called after, I think, half hour and cleared the bill. But the media is not saying what's in that story.
First thing is, he didn't call and clear the bill. He called and told them, go and get the body, everything will be sorted. So
maybe
they cleared the bill after
we don't know about the clearance
after he spoke to them.
Yes.
But there are 2 things here. Number one, when in 2003, which I think you took over at Afia House, one of the first things she did was to declare that government hospitals would no longer be allowed to hang on to bodies, in lieu of payment, or even to hold people hostage. when did that policy change? You know, I'm not sure that I haven't come across. It just seems to be another directive that was ignored. Again, in October of 2012, there was a court ruling that the hospital cannot hang on to people because they haven't paid. That's illegal. You know, so I think that would also apply to hanging on to these bodies. You know, so my question again is, what is the government policy on this? And then secondly, what's the legal thing? And if hospitals are breaking the law, you know, why aren't we seeing action being taken against them? You know, and there should be, I think, I mean, it's all fine and dandy to have Rukayata dealing with one family, but there are many more other families, and we need to be asking, you know, why are hospitals still allowed to hang on to bodies and to hold people essentially hostage simply because they can't pay? That's illegal.
Ahito?
Yeah, very good personal gesture from the president, because one, he has the resources anyway. Two,
he could have just given a directive.
Yeah. For me, the president should be looking at the bigger picture, policy direction, rather than individual. That family is very lucky. At least they had the president's line to send an SMS. 99.9% of Kenyans don't have his line. How would they interact with the president? So those are begging questions. A good way, help for one family, help for other millions of Kenyans also needed. But we encourage him to look at the bigger picture, look at policies which can help majority of Kenyans.
Yeah, it's the systems and structures that need focus, Julie. Perhaps that is good, as they say, but more has to happen.
Yeah, and there's lots of free things we're supposed to be getting. Free maternity, which is not happening. Free education, which is kind of not happening.
So very free.
All these policies are not being implemented. And it looks good for the president, of course, to do that. It's some good PR also. He's
but that's the thing.
But yeah, the larger picture, what's going to happen to the other people who count scores of people, like I use in this case, who...
and now I would want to know from him whether he expects SMSs from the 21
from the
police
rest of
officers,
us,
Capedo, or if he is going to send, I'm waiting to see his public check on those families.
You know, I think, and again, go back to how it's covered, you know, it's a very nice PR story for the president, you know, but we shouldn't be suckered into
caught into that,
you know, essentially regurgitating his PR. You know, but to go back to one thing that happened last week on Friday on the security docket. You remember the Presidential Strategic Communications Unit puts out a press release, essentially says how the president has presented a 10-point security plan. In the speech, there is no 10-point security plan, but everybody repeated it, you know. So for as long as our media continues to function almost as an arm of the president's PR and propaganda,
like what we saw with the private citizen story,
then we have a problem, you know. So
we'll have to give it to
we
him.
need to interrogate. I think on this issue of the hospitals, we need to interrogate why it is in the first place those guys were being held. You know, and why was it actually the president outraged? What do you mean you're being held, you know?
And who else is being held?
They're starting at one. And finally, before we go very quickly, so businesses on page 16 of the Nation, post threat to journalists, says media cancel. You're a journalist. Your thoughts on this, that companies and politicians pose the biggest threat to journalists? The Media Council of Kenya is saying attacks and intimidation, silenced journalists are increasing according to the watchdog. Actually, let me start with you, Ohito, on this story.
No, very strong sentiments about that. It's been my line of activism for very long. Politicians always pose the threat. When you do a good story, you're the best darling. When you do a bad story, you should be, you know, managed and be, you know, contained in a way that you do not let out the criticism that cast them in bad light. So I agree very much with that report that they have posed a very big problem to the work of reportage across all platforms. And two, businesses have become, because they wield financial power, it's almost impossible to criticize some of the biggest advertising spenders on our media platforms, even if they do the worst of the things. So it's really getting...
But there's responsibility on the journalists as well. Just because they're offering, the journalists shouldn't be taking.
The days when media houses were being run by chief editors is long gone. We are being run purely on basis of how much money comes in. And the day KTN stops making money, we will not be in this studio, you will not have a job, we'll all go home. So it's a very delicate balancing act between editorial content and advertising money that comes in. How far should we criticize? And the worst of the politicians have become governors. Let me say without fear or favor, 47 of them. Today, if you do a critical story exposing the ills or the poor services in their counties, the next thing, we are not advertising with you. We are not doing business with you. That sends a very bad signal. We are going to kill creativity in the media. We are going to silence the good stories that Kenyans have a right to be.
And we'll end it there. Our time is up. David Ohito, editor at Digital Standard. Julie Masiga, revised editor at The Standard as well. Patrick Gadara, communications consultant. Thank you very much for joining us on the newsroom this morning. Always a pleasure. Have a lovely day. That's the newsroom for you. Stay with us. We'll take a short break and return with more.
Chance to win your dream home. Simply buy Dettol soap or Dettol liquid hand wash to enter. Scratch the sticker on the pack and SMS the code to 32299. For more details, say press and posters. Dettol, we are 100% sure.
Cherry Interiors is your ideal shopping spot for all things interior. Give your home a fine touch with our range of products, which include Cherry solid doors, French doors, wood grain doors, flash doors, a variety of Cherry cabinetry and fittings, Cherry staircases, floorboards, skirting, as well as a variety of stylish curtain boxes and rods. All items available in a wide variety and affordable prices. Come today and transform your home.
My name is Marcy Kandie in Eldoret, and this is KTN.
Sikia sasa. Uwezi ambia mtu. Mimi nikamwambia teremuka. Mimi nacheka. Kumbe ni waterfall.
The way you dey wind your waist, the way you dey think kololo make the men dey grace. I know say life not a rice and beans, take it gently, softly, softly.
Ukitaka tutoe roho ya kurukaruka, lazima utume mbegu. Mimi nakupenda kata. Nakuanga na nakupenda kata. Wewe ni msupa kuruka. Supu yako iko tayari imeiva.
Matotoa ya blaki na matotoa ile ya rangi ya Wahindi.
Next on My Dream Wedding.
For better, for worse.
Of course, the biggest moment for me is the vow. When we hear them or we watch them on TV, we just think it's a normal thing to do. But when you're in that moment and you have to actually say them and mean them, it really becomes a strong message, because then you're saying it in front of a church. And if you want to divorce, I am of the opinion that you should go back to the same crowd and tell them that I'm leaving this guy. I'm done. And see which part of the vows you've broken. Whether he was rich before and he became poor and you decided, I'm out.
weka do kila wakati kwa account yangu ya Unitas Jipange investment account. Next time ukiniona takuwa sonko.
With Unitas, you can deposit money into your Jipange investment account from the comfort of your mobile phone for free. Unitas, you and me.
The exciting issue of November Parents is now on sale. Buy your copy today and be inspired to seize opportunities by people who have walked that path, including Susie Wakobi, who is making waves in the cosmetic industry, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, a constitutional lawyer with a rich legacy, and a widow from Migori managing a thriving farming business built from pieces she picked after her husband's death. Stay healthy with expert advice on health and nutrition. Also, strengthen your relationship with great tips. Only found in Parents, the magazine that cares for you and your family. You've made KTN your favorite TV station. We've got it all. Entertainment. Comedy.
Hello, everybody.
Reality.
I'm here to help.
Music.
Welcome to State of Life.
Inspiring gospel shows. All these, plus a great lineup of all your favorite movies and animations. KTN. Welcome home.
Buy any Samsung phone or tablet from any Safaricom shop or Safaricom dealer outlets countrywide and stand a chance to win a brand new BMW 2014 model.
Next on Hapakule News.
Nimefika hapa na nilinga double major dressmaking. Alafu ati ni minor kwa plumbing. Hiyo ni ukumbavu sana bwana. Kwani mimi nitarudi huko ushago kuvalisha miwa kamisi?
Unaona huyu jamaa si anaweza convince mtu mpaka ako na Ebola. Hebu angalia huyo jamaa. Ukimwangalia si unaona hata anakaa ni kama ako na magonjwa ya ng'ombe. Foot and mouth.
Malipopote huko jo, husuku na husuko, pasale na hasapa. Takeona, itakuwa ngela na design ya fwine. Miweka do kila wakati kwa account yangu ya Unitas Jipange investment account. Next time ukiniona takuwa sonko.
With Unitas, you can deposit money into your Jipange investment account from the comfort of your mobile phone for free. Unitas, you and me.
The first objective of a terrorist or a criminal is to instill fear. If you let fear deter you from doing the right thing, they win.
It needs the concerted effort of all of us, law enforcement agencies and members of the public, to secure our streets and our homeland from those who mean us harm.
If you notice something suspicious or out of the ordinary, trust your instincts. Call 999 immediately.
Security starts with me.
Kaa chonjo, usinyamaze.